Hello again and welcome back. There is this idea that I had a couple of days ago. It's a pretty nihilist idea essentially. It highlights the point that since life is very rare in the universe, it only says that the universe itself didn't want life. If it had any will, it wouldn't want life. So we are pretty much like a mold in a tiny corner of a big piece of bread, like a parasite. Cosmic parasites. Something unwanted, something undesirable, something which just slips from our vigilant eyes, something which lives off of ourselves, something which we host against our will, something that we are oblivious or rather forgetful or in ignorance of his own parasitic activity inside of us. Think about it. Life has an extremely low probability of being. You go back in time and you change one of the physical constants, and we wouldn't be here. Some would argue that with enough time, anything which is possible would eventually happen, but this doesn't actually dismantle the fact that it is actually rare to happen, that it needed an enormous amount of time to be actualized. At the best of our knowledge, we still haven't found life outside of our planet Earth. But this doesn't mean it's not there, but it definitely means that it's rare. We are alone here. Nothing outside of our planet Earth have ever communicated with us. Or do they communicate in some sort of way that we cannot detect? Or those civilizations actually destroy themselves before being able to open up to the rest of the universe. We have actually sent data about ourselves as Homo sapiens into space, but I don't believe that this data would actually reach any perceiver that would actually understand it in time before we actually disappear ourselves. And this data would actually be useless because it talks only about the past of some species or creatures that lived but are no longer here, like dinosaurs using the fossil record. The universe is extremely inhospitable. Outside of our planet Earth, nothing which lives and accustomed of the conditions of the planet would survive, except of course being in a spaceship or a spacesuit or things like that. Life evolved to survive in this tiny rocket in the middle of space, but not somewhere else, which actually contradicts fine-tuning, because it's not the case that the universe is finely tuned for life, but life is finely tuned for the universe, not the entire universe, but only planet Earth in which life is. You could of course watch a video of mine talking about the argument of fine-tuning to prove God. If we have a universe and we could agree or objectively measure it that 99.99999% of it is uninhabitable, it only means that the universe is actually hostile towards life, hostile towards perceivers, and not the other way around. The universe is in constant change, planets forming, stars consume all of its fuel and turn it into a black hole consuming other planets. Even in our planet, which hosts life, there is a constant entropy that life goes against every time. And I can even say that our planet is not that good of a host towards life. I mean, look at it: volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, diseases, sickness, epidemics, famine, and all sorts of natural catastrophes. Just look at it. How many species were there before us and went to extinction? It is only by finding their fossils we know that they have existed. How many species evolved, lived, and died? Where are we in all of this millions of years of evolution? This is where we are. So tiny, yet we deem ourselves special out of irrational arrogance. Why are we special? Why do we deem ourselves special? Because we can write books and sing songs and write poetry, invent technology and conquer all the corners of the earth, go up to the moon and exploit other species? Or is it because we are conscious and we have a self-awareness? But still, there is no reason to say or to claim that you are special. Why are you special? Because of consciousness. And who says that he is special? Consciousness. It feels like you pat yourself on the back. It feels like you crown yourself by yourself. What if an eagle comes and says that he is special because he can fly? Why do you deem consciousness as something which is really of such great distinction and specialness. It's only subjective. We need an objective measure that could actually affirm our distinction, and such objective measure doesn't really exist. So we are only imagining that we are special out of irrational arrogance. I am special because I'm capable of art. Do you think that the universe cares so much about your art? Do you think that the universe even knows that you are there? Or, well, it's just a figure of speech. But you get what I'm saying. You invent something like morality, or aesthetics, or a god, or religion, and you think by that you are special and the universe revolves around you. How pathetic. You look at space and you see stars millions of times the size of the earth. You look at the past and you see the saga of thousands of creatures evolved and lived and fought for their own survival. You see how millions of people died in plagues and wars and famines. You look at the future and see that all of this shall not stop. Why? Because people simply won't stop fucking. Or not fucking, but breeding. They won't stop breeding. They perceive the world. I don't know, perhaps they don't. But anyway, they see atrocities of the whole world emerging in front of their eyes. Wars, famine, plagues, sickness, whatever. But they still insist on carrying on. Every time you give birth to a child, you affirm your hypothesis that you think of the world and of life as a good, which is irrational, and I seriously don't know how people think. Man, have you eyes? Have you reason? But anyway, this won't be long until it all stops. The sun is gonna explode and and the universe shall meet a heat death. One who looks brightly at life would say that's the judgment day, but you have no evidence for that. The Big Bang and the universe expansion started approximately 14 billion years ago. The Earth was formed like 4 billion 0.5 years ago, and life started forming 3 billions 0.5 years ago. And from there on now, evolution. And what is evolution? Survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest that includes death and suffering and pain of the unfit. Evolution is such a brutal system. Evolution, a brutal, crude arbiter, slayer of life. Unfit, die. Fit, go on. One day you will be unfit, die again. Humans face three major sources of danger. The dangers of the universe, being hostile for life. We cannot live, highly unlikely that we could live any place other than our planet. And our planet itself being hostile towards us, as if it knows that we are actually parasites. Because of its natural catastrophes and disasters, floods, hurricanes, volcanoes, earthquakes, and diseases and plagues. They in the dangers of ourselves, being hostile towards each other. Wars, crimes, exploitation, and manipulation of the ecosystem. If I have a big piece of bread and I can see that there is a tiny mold in the corner, what would I say? I would definitely say that the mold was not meant to be there. It's only an exception. But the rule is the absence of that mold. That mold is simply a parasitic invasion that should have not been there. I would say this is a perfect analogy, but you could say that it's wrong, but if you want to do that, you would need to address God in your argument. But I will not address this topic from the lens of God and religion in this video, because I don't want to make it unnecessarily long, but you could watch my other videos about it. But now what? We are cosmic parasites and we happen to exist in this tiny rock in the middle of the universe. What are we to do with our lives? What are we to do with all of that time? Shall we slave to death in work? Well, that's not really an option, it's rather an imperative because of lack of options. Now that there is no meaning to life, God is dead, religion is obviously a scam, what are we to do with our lives? You feel rather being thrown in the universe, you feel rather being thrown in specific social settings, in a specific country, in a specific household. You feel rather thrown in all of this against your will. But this phrase thrown by, I think, Martin Heidegger is rather illogical, even though it is poetic and it is a figure of speech that used to emphasize and highlight the meaning. It cannot be the case because it presumes that essence precedes existence. But it's not the case because existence always precedes essence. Therefore, we cannot be thrown in a place because that would accidentally say that we were before we are. So we are formed in a social settings by genetics and social conditioning, which forms experience, which actually shapes and molds the self, the I. What is I is nothing but all the accumulation and of all of those things. So what are we to do? Rather than the obvious, eat, sleep, work and die. Well, the only objective goal of humans and all of creatures is to avoid pain and follow pleasure. Since we are this conscious and self-aware, we need some type of meaning, but underneath is just pleasure in disguise. So what are we to do? We figure out our own meaning. We invent one. There is none, we invent one. It only emphasizes the point that there is none by inventing one, but it's not that big of a deal. We just want to enjoy ourselves until our time comes. There's no imperative, there's no command, there's no order. Just enjoy yourself as much as you do not hurt the other. Because we still need to promote well-being. Stop being arrogant, you are not special. All of the reasons that you are special for are just your arrogant imagination. Think you are special because of your art. A shark also can claim to be special, to have sharp teeth and be able to swim. I am a philosopher, therefore I am special. Well, I could say that critical thinking could be a property of being a human just as much as having sharp thorns is a property of being a hedgehog. Where's the specialty? Who says that I'm special? I am special because I have consciousness. Who says that? Consciousness. Where is the standard? Who can settle this? Nobody. It's just a subjective opinion. Rise above. Affirm your power. Follow pleasure, constructive pleasure, and be aware of destructive pleasure. Try to avoid pain as much as you could. Destroy your psychological and social hindrances. Carry your existential power and be the man you always wanted to be. Eat healthy food and go for a walk. Thanks again for watching and see you in the next one.